Okay, I think we're live. Hello, everybody. I'm Abby from Writerly. I am the CEO, and I'm here with Archana, who is our VP of Marketing. And we have the wonderful, exciting privilege of introducing Hugh Howey, who is a best-selling indie author. So I'll just give a quick introduction to Hugh, and what we're looking for is your questions, if you can post them using the Q&A system. We're hoping it's relatively easy to use, but we're not entirely sure. Maybe to get Hugh started, we have a series of questions that we have for Hugh ourselves. So we're not sure if Hugh actually coined the phrase author as a startup, but he certainly lives it. He's the author of the award-winning Molly Fide saga and the New York Times and USA Today best-selling Wool series. And I'm not much of a sci-fi fan, but oh my God, I read Wool, I couldn't put it down. It was crazy. I've got to read the rest now. He is a self-published indie author success story. And we at Writerly love and admire how much Hugh gives back to the writing community, which is also something we try to do. We recommend reading Hugh's post, My Advice to Aspiring Authors, which is featured on his website. He addresses many of the commonly asked questions about self-publishing in this post, but we have a few more for him. So thanks, Hugh. Thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. I want to be VP of something.
I know. Okay, you can be VP of the self-published indie author. How's that?
Okay, maybe just hang out. And
okay.
Bella's with us as well. She's hiding in the background. I don't know if you can see her passed out back there.
Awesome.
She's VP of nothing.
VP of nothing?
VP is the coolest title, which really doesn't mean much. So you got that right.
So you guys are going to stump me with some really tricky questions?
Yeah, we're going to do our best. We're going to do our best. So we know you worked in a bookstore. We are curious to know how important you think it is for an author to visit bookstores.
Well, not just visit them. If you can get a job in a bookstore, I think it was probably the best education I've gotten as a writer and an entrepreneur, as a bookseller. Boy, you learn so much about the industry, like the shelf life of books, and how short that time of span is. You get to deal with reps, deal with people who work for the publishing houses, and learn what they're selling. You learn what customers are buying. You drown in free books. So, the best training for being a writer is to read voraciously, and so you're just swamped in books, and a lot of books that you probably wouldn't read if you weren't being handed them for free. So you get a pretty wide scholarship there as well. So don't just hang out in bookstores. If they're hiring, get a job there. It'll support your habit and prepare you for being a self-published author like nothing else will.
Indeed. It was always my dream job, but I never got to work in one, or I haven't yet. Maybe it's on the bucket list. But what about the authors who visit? I mean, is there, some authors sort of do really, really well. They go to every single bookstore in every single small town, but it takes a lot of time to do that, obviously. But
you mean for doing like
for
events?
Doing promotion, in terms of book promotion, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know that there's, it's fun to do. Just if you can line up some bookstore events, they're fun to do to meet readers. But I've done stuff like that where you sit at a table and you maybe sell. On a bad day, you might sell 5 books. On a great day, you might sell 25 books.
Right.
I think your reach there is so much more limited than if you spent that same day writing a short story and putting it up on your blog for free, or sharing it on Facebook, or uploading it to KDP. There's better things to do with your time, I think, than trying. I think it's something good to do when you have the demand. If you're going to show up and there's going to be 200 people there, that's a way of giving back to your readers. But the traveling that I do, it doesn't help my career. It's just a way for me to give back to conferences and bookstores and fans and conventions and things like that.
Right.
That used to be what you had to do. You had to visit bookstores like that. Now you could do a Google Hangout like this. You could spend that time writing. You could tweet. You could write a blog post that more than 5 or 25 people will come and I don't blog effectively. The people who really would do well blogging are the ones who would use it to promote their works by writing a scene that uses characters from a world, but it's a completely self-contained scene, and show off your skills. And if 5 people saw that, you'd probably have as big of an impact as doing a bookstore event.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I also like visiting secondhand bookstores. Actually, it's a lot of fun, and I try to find one in every city that I visit. So yeah, bookstores are a lot of fun, even for non-promotional events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it was just some of the advice that I've gotten sort of out there. It's there seem to be authors who really kind of are all over the bookstores, and they plan these elaborate events, and I don't know how they kind of pay for all all of the travel and all of that, but I could never quite. I just always felt like there was something I was missing, because like you said, I sort of feel the same way you do, Hugh. Like I didn't see the payback in that. So
I didn't either doing it, and the only reason I did events like that, I was a member of a writers group, and really active with a couple hundred members, and met twice a month, and they were great at finding different locales that would host authors. And so we'd be at a meeting, and someone would say, I need one more person for Saturday at noon to be at this craft show or this mall or this bookstore, and I would raise my hand if there was stuff open, just because I'm kind of a yes man. And so I've done my fair share, but it wasn't from seeking them out. And having done them, I don't that didn't have any measurable impact on my making it as a writer.
Right. Good to know. All right, we have a question from our audience. I always wanted to say that. From Nicole, I've got, what do you consider to be your greatest accomplishment, and do you have plans to come back to Australia?
I have major plans to come back to Australia. Whether it's flying there or getting there by boat is to be determined. So my wife and I are going to leave on a sailing adventure in a few years, because I'll be able to write on the road. So next time I pull into Australia, it'll probably be by boat. But I can't wait to get back. I had a whirlwind tour there last time and didn't get to see much of the fun stuff. So I'm really looking forward to returning. My greatest accomplishment as a writer, that's hard to say. I have been so fortunate for so long. Probably the one that I go back to is like the defining moment for me was when I put in my 2-week notice at my day job as a bookseller, which was my dream job. And that decision was very difficult because I didn't know if my sales would continue, or if as soon as I quit my job, never sell another book, and I'd be going back begging for my job back. So that was terrifying, but it was also the best decision that I made, and it was an incredible opportunity afforded by so many readers jumping onto one of my books and basically funding the last 3 years of my writing career.
Great, thank you. All right, this is a question from, I guess, me and Archana a bit. We talk about this a lot. We have a hard time managing our time, and as writers, we're constantly, it's very easy to get distracted. Suddenly you need to do the vacuuming. So we're wondering, do you have sort of tricks or productivity tools that you use? And if so, which are your favorites?
Yeah, for instance, I'm writing right now. So it looks like I'm interviewing with you guys, but I'm actually working on my next novel. Now, I think habits, forming really good habits and sticking to them has been crucial. Probably the best book I ever read to help me with writing wasn't like my favorite grammar book is Eat, Shoots, and Leaves. My favorite writing biography and craft book is on writing. But maybe the most important book I've read was Willpower, which doesn't just feed into writing, but also living a healthier lifestyle and eating right and exercising, which has me more energetic. I wake up and I can get more done with my time. But forming a daily habit of getting writing done and not taking any excuses, not taking any days off, So when I wrote Sand, for instance, I was on an 8-week European book tour, and I think it's easy to say, well, I'm on book tour, I'm working, so I don't have to write. But taking 8 weeks off would have been devastating, not just for those 8 weeks, but it would have formed a habit of not writing for a long period of time. So I wrote an entire novel while I was on book tour, and I think it's just having high expectations for yourself. I don't think we talk about this often enough, and it's probably dishonest for us not to be more upfront about it. But the people who do really, really well self-publishing are outworking pretty much anyone else out there. I mean, and I don't even put myself in that category, but people like Russell Blake. Russell publishes a book every 6 weeks, and these are full-length novels, and they're fantastic. The quality and quantity are both very high. I've got friends like Liliana Hart, Bella Andre, Jacinta Wilder. They produce quality work at a very high rate, and if you're able to do that, you're going to have great success. Everyone's got to figure out how they're going to handle email and how they're going to handle social media. I think it's best not to look at that stuff until afternoon. The idea that we have to be accessible all the time and we have to respond to emails within 5 minutes is killing us. And it's really healthy early on not to fall into that habit and to let people wait 12 hours before you respond at minimum.
Yeah, that's really great advice.
This kind of brings me to my question. You're very active on social media. I see you on Facebook, and the way you engage with your audience is so different from the way you do it on Twitter. You're even on Reddit. I'm a lurker on Reddit, but I followed your Reddit AMAs, and they were just so amazing. And how do you manage to devote such time to social media? And you seem to do it so well and so easily.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't feel like I spend much time on there. It's something that I devote a couple of hours a day to, like to handling fan mail, sharing stuff on Facebook and Twitter. Reddit's something that I've used as a user. I've been a Redditor before I ever use it for book promotion, but I spend a lot less time on there than I used to. Now it's just to do an AMA every year or two. I see it as an extension of the writing process. So if I have a great day of writing, as soon as I log off, I can say something on Facebook or Twitter. If I write a blog post that I like, or if I read something that I enjoy, then I retweet that or put it on Facebook. But I don't spend a lot of time scrolling through a Facebook feed and following links and letting that gobble up my time. I don't spend a lot of time just scrolling through Facebook and watching videos and doing stuff like that. I use it more like punctuation than I do like the meat of sentences. To me, the writing is the meat of what I do, and if I want to punctuate the writing process, then I use social media to do that.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I sort of struggle too, because it is sort of, I find myself, I get into a place where I'm sort of writing, and then something will pop up, and I'll get distracted. I feel like as a society we're all getting ADD.
I one time I charted, just for fun, and I think I posted this on Facebook. I charted the rise in Facebook memberships or user accounts with the recession and the economic collapse, because it seemed like no one was getting any work done. Everyone was just like on social media. That wasn't the cause of all of that, but they did kind of overlap quite a bit.
Oh, that's
I think
interesting.
Your writing environment is very important. I write in a really horrible program simply because it provides a blank writing environment, and it's Pages, which is on the Mac. It's an awful program, but I've written almost all of my books in it because you can swipe over, and it's a black environment with just a white page with just a word count looking at you, and you don't see emails, you don't see social media. I think writing in a window, if any of that stuff is available, it's poisonous. So that's probably one of my keys to productivity, is just something as simple as that. And maybe unplug your router for the 2 hours you're going to write. Even if you're not writing anything, if you're just staring at a blank screen, something's going on in your head, and so you're being productive. But if you say, okay, there's 5 seconds, I didn't write anything, well, I'm going to go kill time doing something else, that'll destroy your chances of making it as a writer.
Yeah, that's very good advice, indeed.
Sorry to be such a bummer.
I know.
I'm having fun.
I feel like the most productive I am is when I'm actually sitting at my computer but staring out the window.
Absolutely. That's writing. I tell my wife that all the time. I'm like, it's like, you taking a nap? No, I'm writing.
Okay, I'm going to move on to some questions from the audience here. So Michael Christo is asked, what influence has the British culture and British writing had on your work? I have a theory that it does, but I could be wrong.
That's a pretty good theory. I read a lot of British writers. My favorite are Jonathan Swift, Michael Foley, and probably what's affected me. I'm not sure if I'm doing it right now, and I think maybe it's just my friends who I grew up with in the South who don't hear my Southern accent anymore. Everyone else, I think, still hears it. I hear people tell me all the time, like, you sound like you have like some British in your speech, or just a handful of words. I don't know if that's from working on boats as long as I did, but everyone in that industry, it seems, is from South Africa, England, Australia, New Zealand. So, I fell in with a crowd for 10 years that all had accents. I don't know what that effect had on me. But I do love the British sense of humor. I really fall in for those writers when I come across them. So I'm not sure what that does for my writing or how anyone is able to sense that, but I certainly don't see it. It's just something that I immerse myself in quite a bit.
That's awesome. Okay, I have another one from Jade Eby. What advice can you give to authors who write outside of the hot selling genres and struggle with discoverability and marketing outside of always being working on the next book?
Yeah, this is a challenge, not just for self-published authors, but for people who want to get published traditionally. You can submit some really great literary writing, and most publishers will tell you, like, this is beautiful, and it just won't sell. And that has to do with the demand from readers. So you look at The Passage by Justin Cronin. Justin was a fantastic literary writer, and it wasn't until he wrote about vampires that he had major success. So I think every writer's got to ask themselves what they want to do with their career. If they wanted to sustain themselves, maybe you have to take what I would call the Metallica approach, which would be to write your jams, the stuff that you really want to write, and sprinkle in some things that are commercial. They had 1 or 2 slow songs on every album that they probably hated writing and performing, but that's what got radio playtime, and that's what launched their career and helped them get mainstream and have major success. They had contemporaries who didn't do that, who were probably having more fun playing the stuff they wanted to play, but they had to have work day jobs while they did that. So there's nothing wrong with either one of those routes. There's no such thing as selling out. There's no such thing as being too true to your art. Those are 2 different paths that every writer will have to sort for themselves. But you have to face the fact that readers are in charge of this. We're not. Publishers aren't. Reviewers aren't. It's the reader who determines everything, and we should embrace that. And maybe the challenge is, if you want to write outside, like if you want to write a memoir, I don't know if anyone's done this yet, but write your life story and include zombies and have it like be factually accurate. But at the end of every chapter, have zombies come in and ravish whatever the family picnic or whatever's going on. Would that fall outside the classical, like, only interesting to you and your family memoir? Absolutely. Will it sell copies? Maybe. I mean, people did it with some classics and sold millions of books. So, think of some way to do what you want to do, but also appeal to the reader demand.
I think you've actually managed, I feel like in Wool, you managed to create sort of a sci-fi book, but it had, to me, a real sort of literary feel and tone to it. So maybe in a way you're managing to kind of combine 2 things anyway.
Yeah, but I think Justin Cronin does that a lot better than I do, and there's quite a few writers out there who do that. I think Neil Gaiman writes fantasy with a an incredible literary sensibility. Neil Stephenson's another guy who writes just amazing prose, but writes about things that people are seeking out with their money. The challenge with literary fiction, which I enjoy, which I read, and which I aspire to write, is that you don't know what you're getting. So you know the kind of prose you're getting, but what are you going to read about? With genre fiction, you kind of know from the title, that maybe the cover art, and the category, like, okay, I'm really just looking for a book that has fairies in it, or a book that has elves and wizards, and you can go find that. If you're writing literary, you don't have that hook, so it requires people saying, like, okay, The Goldfinch is the book to read this year, and people pick up that book and read it. But otherwise, you're having a hard time, really, with that discoverability issue, because people aren't seeking you out just because of what you write.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I've got another question from Autumn, and she asks, how did you get through the early years and keep the faith? Have no expectations? I mean, before Wool.
Yeah, I had to have no expectations. So it's just something else. Can y'all hear Bella whining behind me? She's like having a fit back there. Sorry, I got distracted by her. One of the things I guess doesn't get discussed enough, if you want to make it as a writer, it's very similar to making it as an actor or a dancer or a photographer or any other artist. You should structure your life around that. You should keep your expenses as low as possible. Be comfortable living with very few things and going without a lot of stuff and eating rice and beans. These are things I did for years, and it allowed me to have the free time and the luxury to write. I could work a 30-hour-a-week job for $10 an hour and pay my bills. That's from living in a 750 square foot house, that I paid cash for after fixing up several houses, and always putting my money into the home instead of taking vacations and doing other things. So we don't talk about that enough, but that's a big part of making it in any kind of artistic endeavor. So that got me through the early years. I also took a very long view of my writing career. I said early on that I was going to write for 10 years before I cared if I was making an income off of it. If I wrote 2 books a year for 10 years, I would have a body of work that I could then go and promote. All these books would be brand new because no one would have ever heard of them. And I think people are really panicking. The more success stories they hear, the more they feel like, okay, this is like a boom time, a gold rush. I've got to write now. I've got to get stuff out there, and then they get the first 2 books out there, and nothing's happening. They get frustrated. I think that's just a really dangerous way to go about this. This revolution in how readers discover works has only begun. It's only going to get better. So I would take a long view and concentrate on writing and producing books that you love and believe in, and let it go 5, 6, 7 years before you care about what your sales are doing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, I think. I mean, I kind of came into writing in such a weird way because I was never a writer. I just had to write this book, and it just came from I don't even know where. And so I have this sort of very, I don't know what the word is, sort of maybe a woo-woo kind of outlook, where I just I really believe the books just come. And I'm sort of just like the conduit, and I'm just sort of writing away. And
that's one
they
way to
always
go
sort of
about
amaze
it.
me when they come out, but I don't feel like I have a whole lot of control. I'm sure you've heard this idea before.
I feel the same way. When I finish a book, I'm always like, I have no idea how I did that. I'll never be able to do it again. And starting with a blank page, I feel like the magic's gone. How in the world did I accomplish that? I have the same sets of doubts and fear every single time with every project. I finished a novel a few weeks ago, and I'm finishing up a couple of short stories, but I'm going to feel that as I sit down to start the next book. Like I suck. I can't write. No one's going to want to read whatever I come up with next. But I think sitting around and waiting for inspiration, that you could do that if you just want to, have kind of a hobby of writing. But I think if you want to make a career out of it, you've got to learn how to sit down and write every single day and produce something every single day.
Yeah, we've started on our PubChat site. We've started doing daily writing prompts. sort of that 10 minutes a day. Sorry, here's Chloe. She's the writerly mascot.
Bella's like, oh,
Jumped
she's
up on my lap.
She's licking herself. Brilliant.
Yeah, so just even doing that 10 minutes a day, you know, sometimes people get so hung up on, I've got to write 1,000 words a day or whatever it is. Sometimes just getting in and you get that 10 minutes, and then you feel like, well, I'm just going to keep going. I'm in the middle of this. And suddenly you've written an hour. So it does help for sure. Okay, I'm going to move on. Keeping going here with the questions. From Amber, do you think short stories, separate or anthology, have a place in the industry anymore?
I do. This is an interesting, I guess, contradiction. I think anthologies work better if it's disparate authors, if you have a group of people writing together. I think if it's just your stuff, I would put out short stories individually rather than putting them out in an anthology. As long as they're long enough, as long as they're at least 5,000 words or so. I really think we're seeing the renaissance of the short story right now. They do really well, especially in KDP Select, where they're part of the lending library and Kindle Unlimited. And I think 99 cents for a story that'll entertain you for 15 minutes or longer is a good deal.
Oh, hang on. Especially given, yeah, I sort of muted.
You're trying to mute Bella. She's the one whining in the background.
I'm recovering from a cold, and it's just like, oh, yeah. No, I was going to say, I mean, people's attention spans are so much shorter now, and people are reading on so many different types of devices, and you know, I know that I can be standing in a line, and I'll just pull out my phone just to read something. So the short stories, I think that's partly what's guiding towards making them a little more accessible now. And I think you're right about print or publishing them separately, because
yeah, but at the same time, it's also an art to write something in fewer words, like flash fiction. I love flash fiction when it's done really well. So that's partly why too. I mean, I've always loved short stories, and I know Wool started as a short story, right?
Yeah, it was a novelette.
It was a standalone.
Words, yep.
That's awesome. Okay. Oh, I like this next question from Nanette. If you could make one immediate change to the publishing industry and have it go into effect tomorrow, what would it be and why?
Oh my God! You just I just got goosebumps. One immediate change to the publishing industry. How about, I'm going to let that stew in the back of my head. Can we do the rest of the questions, and then because that's the best question I've ever been asked.
It is good.
And then we'll come back like whenever our time's running out, and I'll hopefully have a good answer by then. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
I don't want to waste that one. That's like.
No, that's a really good one. I know. I agree. I was holding it to the end, so actually is the.
Oh, is it the end? Are we only doing
the last? But we have more time, and I have a list of questions for you.
Okay.
As well. How about the top 3 book marketing tasks an indie author can do right now?
Top 3 book marketing tasks. I think every author should have a website. I think even if you have a website, you should probably look at it and see how to improve it. I would go to some of the top authors out there, especially the people, traditional publishers, because they've got big budgets and big marketing teams with a lot of experience behind their websites, and figure out how to make your site look like that. I think starting an email list as soon as possible and gathering names of your readers. Don't try to pad your email list. Like, don't do giveaways and things where people are just signing up to win something, because then they're not interested in what you're emailing them about. So even if your email list is only 5 people, but those 5 people want to hear from you, that's a powerful email list. And the third one, I think, would just be to make yourself accessible in as many ways as possible. I don't think marketing a book works by telling strangers to buy your book. I think you're better off either providing useful information for readers or writers or someone in a niche. You know, if you're writing nonfiction, write helpful advice in that area. And I think the way to increase visibility for your work is just to be there for your existing readers, not to win over new readers. It's really up to the readers to go and tell someone else, hey, I read this book and I loved it. If you're just make yourself available through Facebook and Twitter so people who read your stuff can get in touch with you, that's, I think, a more effective way to spend your time. You know, these are all my opinions. There's no right answer to any of these kinds of questions. That's just the way I've been comfortable making myself available, so everyone else might have a different anecdotal experience.
There is a price, though, to be paid, as we were talking about earlier about, you know, never being home.
Yeah, it helps not to have a social life and to hate sleep. Those things are good for you.
Right. Okay, I have another question.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Archana.
I'll go next if we already have a question from the audience.
Oh, you want me to ask the question from the audience? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sorry, I was on mute.
My son just got home from school. Okay, I'm doing the question from the audience. There seems to be a move towards shorter works, novellas. Is the epic novel a thing of the past?
I hope not. I love epic novels. I think they probably didn't have a huge market share before, and they're going to continue not having a huge market share. So I think if we can think of like 10 epic novels that we've read and loved, that doesn't mean it was a big trend or that they were wildly popular even back then. I think a 200,000 word work of fiction is going to have a very small, limited audience, and that's probably going to continue to be the case.
Yeah, I think that's probably true, and also because, you know, more the series does so well, you know, because you can lead with the first book in a series and then sell the rest, and so that's becoming quite the successful model. I know that's the model that's worked for you, and I know others, Jacinda Wilder, and people that you've mentioned. The secret to success seems to be the series.
Yeah, you know, the problem with an epic novel is that people don't talk about a book or review a book unless they finish it generally, and so giving them resistance or a challenge in finishing the book really doesn't help your career. I think you're better off if you think of a novel as a season of TV. The epic novel is like the Netflix dropping the whole thing at once. Here, let's see, you know, who can get through it. The series, where you might have the same amount of words but spread out over 4 or 5 books, is like providing episodic content. And maybe someone doesn't get to the whole series, but maybe they've loved the first 2 books before they drop out, and they write reviews and develop word of mouth for those first 2 books. You've just got a much better chance, a lot more visibility in the bestseller list. You know, if you put all of your series into one epic novel, then it just shows up on the list one time, if it shows up at all. With Wool, the 5 parts were all in the top 10 on science fiction on Amazon. So if you were browsing for science fiction, you're like, what in the hell is all this Wool doing in science fiction? What a stupid name for a book. I got to know more about this. How in the world is it doing so well? So, you know, I saw that when I collected the 5 parts into one novel. It lost a lot of visibility that way. You know, it made a better priced package for readers, and so they flocked to that, and the novel went up in rank, and the individual parts went down. But I certainly wouldn't tackle a story as an epic novel. That's not the way I would go about it, even though, boy, I've certainly enjoyed reading my fair share of them.
Indeed. Okay. Now it's I'm getting a little stuck because I don't want to make this this one question go away. So I haven't been putting the questions up.
Oh, okay, I'll answer that question right now then.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Okay. I don't want to make your job more difficult. If I could change one thing in publishing right now, there are bigger issue things that I could fix that would have longer term impact, to probably be more useful. But the standoff between Amazon and Hachette has been so troubling for me, and there's so many authors whose careers are being jeopardized by this, that if I could do one thing right now, it'd be to sit down in a room with someone from Amazon and someone from Hachette and be the mediator and not let them out or let them eat, use the bathroom, drink, or do anything until we have this resolved. I think we could knock it out in a few nasty hours of bickering. But this has just gone on too long. So if I could fix one thing right now in publishing, it'd be that, which is a shame. There's better things to fix than that, but that's something that's just hanging over the industry right now.
Yeah, that's certainly true. It's been horrible. Okay, I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to keep thinking about that question too, because it's gnawing at me, I think. We've answered this one, so I'll just make it go. All right, we have a question from Amy. Do you plan your book releases for particular months? What do you feel is important for a book release?
I don't. I've never cared about timing book releases. I think you can paralyze yourself considering stuff like that. I think people say, well, some months are slow. If everyone's avoiding those months, then releasing that month and have something new available for people. I also don't think the first, everyone talks about the importance of the first 30 days and dropping off the hot new release list. I've never worried about things like that. I have books that are doing better now than when they came out 3 or 4 years ago, and books that came out recently that were doing great that are doing worse now, and they'll just keep moving around and cycling. I mean, there's new devices being sold every day, new readers coming of age every day. These things are changing constantly, so I would release it when it's ready, and I wouldn't sit back and hold a work before then. I think my dog is begging me for water, so she's making a bunch of noise in the background.
Oh dear. Archana, do you want to ask your question? I know you had one.
Yes, please. So as writers, we are all readers too, and for me, my Kindle is a way for me to find new authors. So usually my Kindle has many indie author titles on it, and then when it's my print book reading list, I have recommendations from different sources, friends, family, book reads, whatever. What does your reading list look like, Hugh?
I was going to see
many
if I
people
had.
would want to know.
I'm currently reading a book called Makers by Chris Anderson. I have I can't remember the name of it. The Triumph of Cities is next after that, and then I've got a pre-release copy of The Ugly Renaissance that I'm going to read after that. Most of my reading is nonfiction, so it's usually history or technology, philosophy, science, something like that. I try to mix a little bit of fiction in there. I get a lot of advanced copies to read, so I read some of those, but it's mostly
Great, thank you. All right, we have a question from Chris A. I'm struggling with rewrites on my first manuscript. It's a sloppy mess that I have no idea how to fix, plotting issues, flat characters, and I'm really struggling to stay with it. How do you find the motivation and inspiration to keep with it?
I think that happens to every writer. I think you get to a place where you're not excited to go back to the book to write in it. And that's also how the readers are probably going to feel when they're in the middle of the book. That's where they're going to drop out. So I think it's really important to stay attuned to that. And instead of feeling down about it, I would say, find the positive in it. Say, oh my God, my radar is working. I can tell when I'm not producing my best work. And at some point you enjoyed the work. I would go back to that point and think of it as a branching storyline, and you went down the wrong path and started writing something that was not interesting. And at the last part that the book was exciting you, and you were wanting to go and write in that world, what was going on then? What were the characters doing? Who was in the room? Those are the people that are powering it forward, and that's the tension that's driving the story. What happened next, and why did the tension go away? How do you reintroduce some tension? So I wouldn't. It's easy to get down about it because you're basically looking at your book as a reader, and you're saying, yeah, I'm bored with it, I don't want to get back to it. Well, that's the reader response. The writer response has to be, okay, I'm bored with it. That makes me curious. That makes me want to inspect the book. This is me actually learning something about my story. So, put your writer hat on and look at it from that perspective rather than just as someone who's bored with the material. It's actually a really good thing to realize that you're bored with your book. It's better for you to catch it than for you to power along and toward a dead end, or for you to wait for the readers to catch it.
I know when I was working on my novel, I kind of got to that point. I knew I was stuck, and I'm in a writing group, and so I had some of my the people in my group had, I sent them a chapter, and everybody read it, and this one guy in my group said, like, who is that guy at the bar? I mean, was she having an affair with him or something like that? And I just kind of went, oh my God, she's having an affair with him. Like, I had no idea that was what was happening. Like, and then I went off on a whole different direction. I was all re-energized, and it was just, it was just somebody else was able to see what came next. It was that.
Yeah,
sort of,
that's. Sticking to a plot, an outline, or having an idea of where the story needs to go can be very dangerous, I think. If you've just got to keep the book interesting, and sometimes, delete entire chapters, just skip forward, and all that stuff in between, fill that in with 2 sentences of recollection. If your book's not exciting you, skip to the part that you know is going to be exciting and write that scene.
Great advice, thank you. All right, Canterbury Commons. Interesting name.
Do you mind if I run and just get my
go
some water real quick? I feel like a bad dad right now. Hold on one second.
All right, well, what can we do in the meantime? We could do a little tap dance. Archana, come on.
Let's make some tea and have some biscuits to go with,
I'm
kind
glad
that we eat with tea.
I'm glad I put on pants for this hangout.
That's a good thing.
So I can get up like that. Sometimes I'm just like, you go from writing your underwear just throwing a shirt for like an interview. And
oh gosh, I'm never going to be able to watch any of your interviews with the same.
I was on Bloomberg News one time with a shirt and tie, and like the shirt's untucked, and I have on like exercise shorts on the bottoms. And I'm thinking, God, if the camera panned down right now, it'd be interesting.
Be in trouble. That's good. All right, question from Canterbury Commons. What is your view of ebook piracy, and how do you handle when you see your books pirated?
I celebrate when I see my ebooks pirated. One of the saddest experiences for almost a year of my writing career was I would get on the piracy sites and the where sites and search for my stuff on torrents, and nothing would come up, and that's an indication that nobody's reading and talking about, or there's no demand at all for your stuff. So when someone finally, I gave up looking, to be honest, and then someone emailed me years ago that one of my books was being pirated, and I thought, finally, oh my God, I finally have some people out there who want to read my stuff. So I don't worry about it. I think it's wrong for people to steal other people's books, but they have permission to steal mine, so I don't speak for all authors. I only speak for my stuff. If a friend came over and saw a book on my bookshelf they wanted to read and said, hey, can I borrow that? For years, I've always said, yeah, sure. I hope you enjoy it. Or if I finish a book I love, I'll pass it to my wife or someone else and say, man, I love this book. I think you're going to enjoy it as well. I feel like I'm doing the author a service by doing that. Am I stealing from them? Am I cutting them and the publisher out of a commission and a royalty check? Yeah. And we do it all the time. We do it when we go to a used bookstore and we buy a used book. We're leaving the author and the publisher out of that transaction. So, my solution, I had people emailing me and saying, hey, I stole your ebook and loved it. What's your PayPal address? I finally put a button on my website just for pirates. It's got a Jolly Roger on it and it says, already read it? Not a problem. Pay for it here if you want. And people use that button every day. And I see it as a DRM-free library. So personally, it doesn't bother me at all. I think publishers are out of their minds to waste money and resources chasing these things down. It's the biggest pirates out there aren't even reading the stuff that they steal. They have a hoarding mentality, and they collect tens of thousands of songs, all kinds of software and video games and books and stuff that they don't have the time to actually use. They're just spending all their time downloading stuff, amassing it, organizing it on their hard drives, and not doing anything with it. So worrying about those people just seems silly to me.
That's good advice. You always do wonder what people are doing with that sort of stuff. I was going to ask you a question before moving on to some of the audience questions, which was, at Writerly, we sort of connect writers with editors and book designers and that sort of thing. And we sometimes have a hard time sort of teaching writers the importance of a professional editor. And I'm wondering if you could maybe just speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's a shame that most writers don't put out their absolute top-notch best material. I think there's a rush that happens when you finish a manuscript, whether it's the first draft or the first revision, and you're so excited. I mean, I get like manic when I get to that point of a manuscript, and I'm just like, the world is beautiful and everything is wonderful, and you're just in such a good mood. So many endorphins are buzzing in your head that you feel like your material is perfect, and you upload it. And if you see it a few weeks later, you realize, oh my God, I can't believe I uploaded that. I think having as many eyes on your work as possible, whether it's through writing groups, hiring developmental editors, hiring copy editors, employing beta readers, those are all super crucial. If you're doing this just because it's fun to write, you're just putting stuff up there and you don't care if it sells a copy, do whatever you want. If you want to make a living as a writer and you want to give yourself a chance to earn an income, and keep in mind that your book is going to be available for the rest of your life and several generations hence. It's not too much, I don't think, to invest a couple $1,000s even to make it a professional package. I've do a lot of photography on the side and have for years. Even as a broke bookstore employee, I would save up money for years to just buy one lens that would cost more than a good book should be invested in. So if you're serious about this as a hobby, realize it's a very inexpensive hobby. It's mostly your time, and hiring an editor is a very necessary, I think, and critical component of that.
Indeed, yeah, it's hard. I know I myself sort of feel like I impulsively published on KDP because it was just so easy, sort of like suddenly it was done and up it went, and then I was totally unprepared for that.
There's another thing to consider there too. A lot of people have done that and they're not having any traction with their careers. But most of the work has already been done. Writing that rough draft is the lion's share of the work. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with unpublishing all of your material and sitting down with your manuscripts and going through them one more time with all that you've learned since you've written, 3 or 4 books, going back to that first book, seeing if you can do anything to clean it up, get it edited, get new cover art, publish it under a different name, put in the book somewhere previously published as, with the title and the author, and so if anyone, if you only sold 10 copies, 100 copies, whatever, you don't want to rip anybody off. You're not trying to get away with anything. You're just saying, okay, that was one attempt, didn't work. I'm gonna take a step back and go at this in a more professional manner. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I don't know of many people who have tried that because it's certainly a lot of work involved in doing it. But I think it's worth doing if you're not getting traction, because the writing of the rough draft, which is already completed, was the majority of the work.
Exactly. I think Bella's having a really good time with her toy behind you.
She's like, it's the time of day. Like, this is when we're normally done with the writing day, and like she gets to go around the neighborhood. I can't even use the W word, or she'd freak out right now. So.
That's very cute. Okay, we only have a couple more minutes, and we have a couple more questions. So from Nicole, how hard is it, and how much time and effort do you place into maintaining your career as an author? And how do you move past the self-doubt that you spoke about earlier to continue doing so?
Boy, do you ever move past the self-doubt? I don't know that that happens. I've got a lot of friends who have been out this longer than I have, who are much more successful guys with traditional publishers who, are perennial New York Times bestsellers. And when I talk to them about it, they all have the same crippling self-doubt, and not just writers. I've got friends in other careers who I assume, man, you're at the absolute top of your game. I can't imagine that you have these feelings, and they do. So. Matter of fact, I would embrace any feelings of self-doubt. Usually that comes from people who immerse themselves in enough quality material, who are reading great stuff. They know what great writing looks like. So when they feel like they're not living up, and maybe it's because they have high standards or a good awareness of what quality art looks like. If you think your voice sounds perfect, you might be tone deaf instead of just a perfect singer. So if you feel that self-doubt, maybe embrace that and see it as a way to motivate yourself to produce even higher quality material. That's what I'm trying to do anyway. I'm trying to convince myself that my self-doubt comes from being well-read and like appreciating good literature and knowing that I'll never live up to that. Then I can at least accept it and think of it as a positive attribute rather than a negative one. As for how I manage my career, I have a problem with this. I don't think of myself as a professional writer, even to this day, even though that's where I've made my money, and that's what allows me to sit at home with this crazy animal all day and go on tour and all these other things. Maybe it's that self-doubt, but I see myself as a reader who loves to tell stories and has gotten very lucky in that some of his stories have done very well. But I take my craft seriously without taking myself seriously, and I think that helps a lot. I see this as a phase more than like something that I have to have for the rest of my life. When the sales stop and I have to go back to working in a bookstore, I'll be just as happy as I was the last time I worked in a bookstore. If I have to go back to roofing, I'll be just as happy as I was when I was roofing. So I don't let that the need to be a professional writer kind of get in my way or hang me up. I just feel incredibly fortunate to have had the success that I've had so far. If the question was more about time management with being a writer, most of my time is spent writing. I think that's where it has to be. I've said yes to a lot of things just because they all sound a lot of fun. But I'm learning to turn things down so I can spend more time with family and more time just writing. But managing it that way as a career is a bigger challenge than managing the concept and idea.
Thanks, Hugh. All right, I'm just going to barrel through here.
Yeah, sorry to rattle on so long.
No, that's fine. It's great. No, it's really excellent. Excellent advice. So from Lore, on marketing for indie authors, it seems that sharing a support team would be a good idea. Ideas on how authors in their homes miles away from anyone else could collect together and share access to someone interested in doing all that stuff.
So the people sharing would be several authors, I guess, working together to market.
Yeah, that's how I've read it. Mm-hmm.
I've seen authors do this, with box sets and with. I do it when I read a book that I like from a friend and want to tweet it and share it. Maybe the most useful thing I've seen are the forums, really helpful writing forums. That's usually a lot of people sharing information and advice, and you can do it by participating or by lurking initially until you feel like you have something to offer or you have questions. But I do think we're all in this together. I think authors are not in competition with one another like a lot of people assume that we should be. I think a good book increases the likelihood that someone else is going to go out and buy another book rather than do something else with their free time. So I think there's a lot of value to seeing us as a cooperative and all being in this together. I certainly don't understand all the sniping that goes on and the drive-by one-star reviews and the the sock puppet attacks and all that stuff. That just doesn't make any sense to me at all. I can't imagine living like that. I can't imagine anyone thinking they're going to get ahead by engaging in that kind of activity. And I see, sadly, I see a lot of it.
That's true. I know at Writerly we work hard to try and create these sort of teams where authors are meeting writers and writers are meeting authors, and we're publishing a lot of articles about writing that are useful for people. And those authors the authors of the articles are often online, and you can find them as well. So there's lots of sort of communities out there for writers. All right, our last question from Mims. This may have been answered, but what is your favorite type of nonfiction? Recommendations?
My favorite type of nonfiction are books that deal with trends in society, culture, and technology, things that are going to impact us in the near future. Maybe my favorite book in this realm is Stuart Brand's Whole Earth Discipline. So he has chapters on nuclear power, genetically modified organisms, how green cities are on the whole for the planet. This is a guy who's working on a de-extinction project to bring back the passenger pigeon, the woolly mammoth, the black-footed ferret, and this is real scientific progress. They might be 3 years out from bringing back the woolly mammoth. I've also loved two other books I've really loved recently. I'll name three. What Technology Wants by Kevin Kelly, one of my favorite books of all time. The Second Machine Age is another incredible book, and Smarter Than You Think. But books like that. Also love like Moonwalking with Einstein and Most Human, a couple of books that came out a few years ago. These all are books that deal with science and the near future and what's ahead of us. These are the things I'm most passionate about. Maybe that's why my approach to publishing has always been what's around the corner, how are things changing, how are changes in other fields signaling what might happen in publishing. I think if I've ever had any insight, I don't know that I've had, but if I've ever had any insight or any awareness of future trends in this industry, it's because this is my writing is my hobby compared to my passion and my full-time devotion to futurism and trying to understand our place in the world and how that's changing. Oh, you're muted. So
yeah, sorry.
I was trying to read your lips.
What'd she say? Yeah, no, those are great recommendations, great ideas. Well, listen, I think we're going to let you get back to Bella, although she's crashed out behind you now.
Now she's giving up.
Tired herself out. And I want to thank you so much for joining us and taking the time.
Thanks, you. We know how busy you are, so thank you so much.
No, my pleasure, and thank you for everything you guys do at Writerly to connect writers with all the ancillary freelancers that make books shine. I hope people will check out your website, and I'm not sure, maybe you guys were going to do this, so maybe I don't need to pitch you. But
no, that's awesome. Better you than me.
I really appreciate what you guys do, and I hope everyone out there will give their book the best chance by hooking up with editors and cover artists and beta readers and all the people that make a book special. And I wish there were more people who use services like you, and I wish there were more services like that. I wish they'd been around when I was just starting out. So thank you for all you do.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, you.
All right, we'll let you go.
Okay, cheers, everyone.
Bye. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
See you. Cheers.